Yo, welcome to the SitRep, the situation report for today, which is the 20th of September. I'm Gads. This is Ragnarok Survival, and as per usual, this is where I'm going to go through news stories that have piqued my interest in the past 24, 48 hours and have a yarn about it, have a chat about it from the perspective of being better prepared for whatever's coming down the pipe at the moment, which I've looked up the pipe and it looks like a whole heap of shit is coming down. I mean, it's not all bad. There's good things happening in the world. There's a lot of good things, but this is just, us sort of looking at the things that could go wrong and go, how do we best prepare ourselves? So as always, thank you for joining me, whether you're joining me on Instagram or on YouTube. Especially thank you for being one of those people who's been hitting the like button, subscribe button. Really appreciate it. And if you happen to be listening to my voice on the podcast version of this, then I thank you very much for listening in. The listens are getting more and more. I mean, it's small potatoes, right? But I don't really care. I'm not doing this for hundreds of thousands of people. I started doing this for 3 people, and I'll continue doing it as long as there's 3 people. So if everyone else buggers off and there's only 3 of you left, well, take heart that I'll keep doing this. As long as you're enjoying it, I enjoy it. All right, here's what I want to lead off with today. It was one of those inflammatory headlines that I put on the YouTubes today about, you better watch this before I get blacklisted. Now, this is actually an old story. So this is one of the people that I follow, that I watch a lot of their videos. I listen to a lot of their content. This is a dude coming out of the US named Mike Glover. Now, Mike Glover is a ex-Green Beret. I don't know if you actually call it ex-Green Beret. I like to say that I'm an ex-Green Beret, as in a commando here in Australia. And people are like, oh, you never ex. You're always part of it. I'm like, oh, I'm getting pretty old. My knees are pretty shot. I think I'm ex. I think I'm past my time, man. Like, it's over. I'm just hanging out. Like, please, China, don't start any World War III in the next year or two, and then I'll be too old and I won't have to worry about this. That's a lie. I'll be in it anyway. I'll be there. Just get some shots in the knees or something. Anyway, Mike Glover, let's get back to this. He is the founder of a fantastic channel called Fieldcraft Survival. Not just a channel, but a company called Fieldcraft Survival. They teach courses. They've got a shop. There's a number of people now falling under that banner. Superb resource, really, for anyone who is preparedness minded. Anyway, he's got a side one called American Contingency, which was built around helping Americans be better prepared, increasing preparedness in individuals, in civilians, by putting out information and running courses and all that sort of stuff. This is a great thing, right? Well, apparently the FBI doesn't think so. So Mike Glover himself got out and said this, it was probably about a week ago, but now the news is actually starting to go out, and a few other people have been putting it out there, and it came into one of my channels again. So I thought, you know what, I'm actually going to throw this up, because this is something that may potentially could be something that could affect someone like me, in that I'm ex-military. I put out preparedness information, or something around in that space, and if somebody was to deem me on the wrong side, or not in agreement with what they believe, then this is the kind of shade that could be thrown out at me. So I kind of look at this sort of stuff and I go, well, I'm, like I said at the start here, I'm small potato, so no one's coming and targeting me. But people like Mike Glover, who I don't think should be targeted, I think these sort of people should be upheld in our society. They should be lauded as the paragon of what people should aspire to be in reality. This is someone who doesn't have to do this, who's got out of the military, who has served their country and the people of that country, and then has got out and decided to continue serving in another way, and then gets targeted. So the FBI has labeled Mike Glover and his American Contingency as a terror group, a domestic terror group, as in a terrorism group, as in this person is in any way, shape, or form wanting to terrorize human beings. It's just utter fucking madness. And I thought, I'm not really going to talk about this when it first came up. I'm like, you know what, it is kind of important to me, but maybe it's just important to me, and I don't really need to get up here and rant about it. But I felt that today. I was just like, nah, I am going to rant about this. I think people should go out there, look at these channels, look at how much good they're putting into the world, and actually support people like Mike Glover, Fieldcraft Survival, and American Contingency. Even though it's American Contingency, it's not Australian Contingency. It's still something that I look at and I go, well, you know, I like what you're doing. It doesn't 100% apply to me in my situation, but I'm all for it, 100%. Anyway, that's my little rant for today. Just wanted to get that up and out there, so you know where my mind's at today. All right, let's jump into stuff here, and I'm just going to go through a few interesting stories. We'll start off with the earthquake that struck in Mexico. So this is on the western side of Mexico. I think it was on the coast there. 7.5 magnitude. That's pretty big, pretty huge. Interestingly, allegedly, and I've seen some video footage of this, but I can't match it up. I can't verify that this video footage is actually real and what they say it is. There's video footage of some of the authorities there, and it appears to be people in military uniforms conducting an exercise of how to deal with a major earthquake 1 hour before the earthquake hit. Like, wow. A little bit more information on this. On the 19th of September in 1985, a huge earthquake hit Mexico. On the 19th of September again I think it was 2007 or 2008. I think I've got that information a bit further down, but not too long. Maybe it was 2004. I can't remember. But in the 2000s, again, an earthquake hit. So maybe they were just running this drill because they're like, hey, we've had 2 major earthquakes happen on 19th of September. Now, 19th of September 2022, bang, earthquake hits again. That's a really strange coincidence, don't you think? I think it is. And I'm not a big believer in coincidences either. I don't know what it means. I'm just like, that's, 2 times is odd. 3 times, I'm like, that's habit forming. Earth, Mexico, your tectonic plate is forming a habit. Stop it. Also, Taiwan, they've been having other earthquakes. So, technically aftershocks, but it's at the magnitude. This is a 5.6 magnitude earthquake. So you can't just say, well, it's an aftershock. It technically is, but, that's almost another earthquake again happening in Taiwan. Earthquakes, hey? Does anyone else feel like earthquakes are in the news a lot lately? I did mention this yesterday where I was talking about, I love talking about weather effects and how we can best prepare ourselves for weather effects. And I believe personally that we're going to be seeing more extreme weather effects going on more frequently. And I said, hey, earthquakes don't really fall into that category, in that, we can kind of predict when we're going to have huge fire seasons. We can kind of sometimes predict that there'll be flooding in regions and things like that. We can figure out the weather that's happening up here. But the stuff that's happening, that's tectonic plates, and that's just going to happen when it happens. But it just feels like it's happening more. And again, I don't like going on feelings, and I don't like putting my feelings out here. This is something that I should actually go and look at the stats on and pull it apart for you. But I just think it's something interesting that I'm like, man, there's a lot of earthquakes in the news at the moment. How odd. Let's jump into protest now. So I'll just go through these. Now, I have said this quite a number of times. Civil unrest is going to increase. I think what we would have seen is a huge amount of civil unrest that got curtailed, because in 2019 we actually had more riots going on in the world than we had at one time than we ever had before. We'll peak riot season in 2019. Then obviously COVID hit. Everyone was locked indoors. Then we had some huge ones burst out the seams. And now we're all getting out and about again. And there's a whole heap of other confounding factors. And we are getting civil unrest all over the shop. Crowds hit Tokyo streets decrying the state funeral of Shinzo Abe, where so Japan, the assassinated ex-PM there, or president, prime minister, president, Prime Minister. Ex-Prime Minister got assassinated. They're saying, hey, we're going to throw a state funeral for him. People are up in arms saying, no, you're not spending our money on this funeral. Protesters hit Austria's street to decry energy pricing, energy pricing and cost of living riots in Europe are going. That's going to be the hot thing, and that's literally going to be the only hot thing coming into winter because they've got no gas. But expect more of this. Expect much more of this. In fact, I said this yesterday. Germany is expecting more of this. They are actually gearing up their civil defense network, their policing forces, saying, hey, we're going to be hit with a huge amount of protests in the coming winter because we can't keep our people warm. Plus, I mean, Germany's in all sorts of bad, but they're probably going to hit double-digit inflation very soon as well. Kat on YouTube says, I have someone working on a project from Europe and constantly out of communication due to energy shutoffs. Oh, damn. Yep. And this is what they're going to see. They're going to see much, much more of this. Charlie Cause on the Instagram says, Earth's birthing pains noted in the Bible. I have read the Bible. I'm not that around it. Let me know where in the Bible that is, and I might go back and read that. If you can give me the specific, what do you call it? Latin long? I can't remember what they call it in Bibles, the book, and it's got numbers next to it. Apologies. All right. Anti-Macron protests hit France, so people out in the streets there. I'm just throwing that one in because all these stories here are all about protests. Another day in Paris, all right? Like I've said a million times, the Parisian national pastime is chucking a riot. They love it. They're sick for having a riot, those guys. Assange supporters rally outside British consulate in Melbourne. Melbourne, by the way, any international viewers here, it's not Melbourne, it's Melbourne. I grew up there and I can tell you, it's pronounced Melbourne, like B-U-N, Melbourne. All right. Anyway, Julian Assange stuff, but again, people out in the streets, people protesting stuff. Protesters hit Iran streets after a woman allegedly dies in morality police custody. This was a Kurdish woman. If you've ever listened to me talk about the Kurdish people before, where I've had experience there, I've gone and lived around the Kurdish people before. So, you know, I don't understand Iran Kurdish people at all. I'm talking about Syria, but, you know, this is a persecuted people generally. So what's actually happened here, this is the only one report that I've actually seen of this, and other information has come out about this from the riots, that apparently a 10-year-old was shot and killed in the riots, allegedly. I haven't backed it up yet. But here, protesters again out in the streets. Again, this is what we're going to see. So I was just throwing up those stories there to kind of slap that picture up there, like civil unrest. Do you live in and around a city? Are you around a large amount of populated people? If so, this is something that you should definitely be preparing for. You should be thinking about this. You should be thinking, all right, keeping your eye on the news. Are there protests planned? Are there, you know, any sort of gatherings of people planned? These are the sort of things that I would be personally avoiding at this point. I would also start to think about, how can I best deal with riots if I get caught in them? What do I have to do? Maybe what sort of equipment should I carry? What sort of things should I have? Maybe in a grab bag or in my car. You know, maybe things to cover your face, gas masks and such things to protect your eyes, things to flush out riot control agents, spare changes of clothes and things like that, garbage bags where if you are caught in a riot and you do get contaminated from riot control agents, as in CS gas and stuff like that, that you can actually change your clothes and put the other clothes into that bag and have it sealed up. So stay safe out there, gang. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, here it is. Those two Mexican earthquakes were in 1985 and 2017, so 5 years ago, both on September 19th. And then we just had one yesterday there as well. Interesting. Interesting. All right, let's just chuck up some news here we'll go to Europe. EU Commission is seeking emergency powers to force companies to make key products and stockpile goods in a crisis. Last time I checked my dictionary definition of communism, this sort of stuff was involved in it, where you've got a authority, someone at the peak of the hierarchy, the governing body, who is dictating who and what has to make things, what it gets produced. That is terrifying to me. Now, again, this is amusing to me, in like terrifying in one sense and amusing to me in another sense, because this is, again, another thing that is directly out of the pages of Atlas Shrugged. I know I keep harping on about this book, but if you read and understand Atlas Shrugged, I think you will really understand what's going on in the world at the moment. And I'm not saying this is not some grand conspiracy like, oh, they're coming to get us, the communists and the socialists, blah, blah, blah. I think this is partly just an evolution of what's happening and people being led down a path and going down the path themselves without consciously stepping back and going, wait, what's happening here? And what are the unintended consequences that could come out of this? Anyway, shit stuff, I think, that's coming out. Here's an interesting little human piece. German bakery slapped with 330,000 euro gas bill. How much does that equal out per loaf of bread? Yet another thing, yet another cost getting chucked into our food system here, another attack on the food system. So watch food prices indeed continue to increase. Okay, let's jump over to the Russia sort of thing now. I know I'm all over the shop today, but that's just the way it is. Reports coming out that Russia has struck a nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine, damaging the power plant buildings in an act of what is being called by the energy operator in Ukraine as an act of nuclear terrorism. So there's reports that the strikes happened within about 350 meters of the reactors themselves, and that there was damage to the buildings around them. Nothing more than that I could see. And again, the whole he said, she said sort of thing is in play here, because on the Russian propaganda side, I was seeing stuff about Ukraine frivolously attacking positions that were close to nuclear power plants. They didn't specify where, but I would imagine maybe it's some of this, and it's news cycles trying to get in front of each other and say, they did it, they did it, they did it. I don't care who did it. I don't think anyone should be firing shells around nuclear power plants for starters, but definitely something that's a bit of a concern. Again, more of the same rhetoric, more of the same stuff that's coming out of this conflict, this war that's going on there. SpiceGale27 says, anyone recommend where to get gas masks in Melbourne? So if anyone can recommend that. A couple of companies, I've used MSA, just bought it off the net, and I've used them through different work channels as well. I've got one through work channels at the moment, but MSA make pretty good gas masks, and they make ones that are kind of military grade ones. Mira Safety, MIRA Safety, out of the US, make them as well, but it can be like, I haven't bought one from them because the costs at the moment, the Australian dollar against the US is not good, plus the shipping costs don't really make it viable for me. I ain't that rich at the moment, but I have bought a number of different what would you call it, trade type ones. So ones for tradies, ones for workers and things like that. RSEA Safety, which is a pretty big safety company that's open to the public. You can just walk in there and they've got shelves of stuff. I got a number of different versions from them. 3M, I think, make one. Sandstrom make one. I've got them sitting over there. I should just pull them out and show you. But anyway, you can get those ones as well. If you have to, you could also go to like Bunnings or something like that. Bunnings don't have the full face ones though, which I generally recommend if you're going to be in and around riot control agents like CS gas and stuff like that. Get a full face mask because it gets in your eyes. Trust Gads on this one. I have had the holy trifecta. I've been tasered, I've been sprayed with pepper spray, and I have been CS gassed. And I'll give you the hot tip so you don't have to go do it yourself. None of them are fun. None of them are fun. So avoid at all costs, trust me. Makes breathing very hard, makes opening your eyes very hard, extremely painful, and is debilitating. Debilitating. But check out those. RSEA is a pretty good one. You can get relatively cheap gas masks there. Not that you want to cheap out on these things, but you don't want to be spending $600-700 on it if you're never going to use it. German finance minister has come out and said now is the wrong time to shut down any power plant. I love this quote here because this actually. So to give everyone the background here, Germany is pretty headstrong on shutting down their nuclear power plants, even though they are facing a huge energy crisis right now. And I've said this before, I'm not like the world's biggest fan on nuclear or anything. I'm just like, I don't see any other way that Europe especially, but the rest of the world can get away from fossil fuels, can have the life that we're having and not cause essentially mass starvation and death of a scale that we haven't seen in our lifetimes or in many, many lifetimes, going back a couple of generations. If we want to avoid that, the only way I can see that we have with the technologies that we have at the moment are nuclear power. And there's, I'm not going to go into it today, but there are certain elements that we can actually use within nuclear power that are a lot better than you think. If you're thinking like it's just this horrible thing, we're going to have meltdowns and there's this nuclear waste that we have to deal with for millions of years afterwards. Well, no, actually, maybe not. Like there are some pretty big advances that have happened in this space. Anyway, Germany's shutting them down. Germany's going to feel a lot of pain come this winter, or probably come this autumn, to be honest. Some other things that have come out from Germany, and I've talked about this in the past, is some of their politicians going like, no, we're going to support Ukraine no matter what it costs my people. It doesn't matter. I'm not here to hear the complaints and them getting cold and them not being able to eat. I said I'm going to support Ukraine and we will do it. And I'm like, didn't you say you're going to support your people? You got elected by your people. You should be probably supporting your people. That's what I should do. I mean, yeah, do stuff for Ukraine, but not at the cost of your own people who democratically elected you to get into the spot you are. Anyway, I want to put this quote out from the German finance minister. Quote, I took an oath of office to prevent harm to this country. We cannot shut down safe and climate-friendly electric generation capacity in an energy and power crisis. That first part, I took an oath of office to prevent harm to this country. This is the kind of stuff that gives me faith that maybe there are some politicians out there that might actually be looking out for the people who put them in the position that they're in. Again, nothing really to do with Australia, except that, across the board, pretty much all our politicians are dickheads. And I apologize. There are some good politicians out there, but on the whole, pretty much dickheads. There are some out there that actually do what they're supposed to do. Remember, the title there is public servant, to serve the public. That's the thing that I feel is being forgotten in the world at the moment, en masse. Is somehow they get elected to these things and go, oh, I'm here to rule. I'm here to lead you. I'm here to make the decision so you don't have to. And it's like, no, you're here to serve us. It's not like this. It's like this. You're at the bottom here and you're holding us all up. That's why we put you there. That's why you stepped into that arena. All right. Last thing I'm going to talk about today, USDA investing $2.8 billion in climate smart agriculture. So little bit convoluted of what's going on here, but the gist of it is that they're building a registry, a data collection sort of, I guess you call it a registry for all the food that's being grown, all the agriculture, allegedly within the USA. So it's a huge tracking system. Who grows what? Now, I kind of threw this out there as a little bit. This was a little bit tinfoil hat when I threw it out there. Was the registration of personal gardens that was kind of flashed up? That's actually been something that's been around in the US for a long time, a longish time. And it just came back up into the news, and so I was like, "Look what they're making us do! Nobody should register their gardens." But this actually doesn't plug into that at all, but could plug into that, could be led into that, could be start to expand out to look at that sort of stuff where we're going, oh yeah, we're growing 1,000 hectares of corn in Nebraska, but also what's Jim Bob Joe doing in his garden in Arkansas? What's little Betty Crocker-Sue doing in her front little garden there? How many herbs has she got? Let's register that as well. Let's make sure it's all there. It's nothing. It's nothing really. It might just be a really, really clever idea for looking at what they've got as resources and using it as a kind of a vegetation census, as it were. That's the better world that my heart hopes for. I also see this as an underpinning framework for absolute communism, as in yep, now we know what we've got and we can just spread that out. And us, the government, we know best, so we can actually move that around. So USDA will now figure out what allocation of food you can get based on what we have growing here. Maybe not though. Let's just assume it's all going to be okay. That would be the best way to go. All right. That's it for today. I'd like to thank you all again for joining me. I really appreciate it. Appreciate all the comments, all the thumbs ups and things like that you've been throwing my way. Always very appreciated. As always, if you've got any questions, shoot them through to me. Let me know. If you've got anything that you have found that's interesting, also shoot it through to me. If I also find it interesting, I will talk about it. But apart from that, I will wrap it up there. So remember, the point of these kind of little chats here is not to bring more fear into the world. That's the antithesis of what I actually want to achieve here. What I'm trying to do is put information so we can be smartly prepared. That's all. That we can look at this sort of information and go like, right, okay, what are the tea leaves saying? What way is the wind blowing? What should we do in our lives to make sure that we're best prepared for whatever comes our way? That's really all I want to do. And again, just building more self-reliant human beings, because I think the more we can do that, the more we can actually help support things if and when they go wrong. All right, gang. Stay safe out there. Keep prepping. Remember, things are still okay in our world. There's still food in the supermarket. I know that because I went in there today and I bought some. And it's tasty. And I'm going to go eat some now. Stay safe. And as always, Semper Paratus.